All right, let's talk about this month's Patch Tuesday from Microsoft because, well, it's far from routine. We're looking at a really critical mix of urgent security fixes, a very welcome performance boost, and, unfortunately, a few nasty surprises. So let's break down exactly what you need to know about these December updates.
Right off the bat, the sheer scale of this is pretty significant. Microsoft just pushed out fixes for 57, that's 57 separate vulnerabilities. And that's a ton of fixes, but there are a few in that list that demand our immediate attention.
And here's why everyone is on high alert. Tucked inside that number are up to 3 zero-day vulnerabilities. Now, if you're not familiar, a zero-day is a flaw that attackers are already using before the good guys, in this case Microsoft, even have a fix for it. That means these are being actively exploited in the wild, right now. Okay, so let's cut right to the chase and talk about the biggest threat here. The main reason every IT admin is scrambling right now is because of one particularly nasty bug that's already being used in attacks.
The big one everyone's talking about is a privilege escalation bug in something called the Windows Cloud Files Mini Filter driver. Look, in simple terms, this flaw lets an attacker who already has a small foothold on your system basically become the administrator. Think of it like a thief who swipes a janitor's key and then uses it to get the master key to the entire building. It's what turns a small breach into a complete disaster.
So, with a threat that serious, what's the solution? Well, Microsoft has rolled out a series of updates to patch these holes. And hey, they've even thrown in a pretty nice performance upgrade for good measure.
Okay, so these are the key updates you need to have on your radar. Now, first one, KB5070233, that's for the latest versions of Windows 11. And it is absolutely critical because it has that zero-day fix. Now, if you're on the slightly older 23H2 version of Windows 11, you're looking for KB5071417. And for all you enterprises still hanging on to Windows 10 with those extended security updates, your patch is KB5071546.
Now, amidst all this security chaos, there's actually some really good news. Microsoft has started rolling out a feature that's genuinely going to make your machine faster: hardware-accelerated BitLocker.
So here's the deal. Traditionally, BitLocker encryption had to use your main CPU for all the hard work, which, as you can see on the left, could really slow things down. But the new version, on the right, offloads all that work to specialized hardware. The bottom line? You get the exact same powerful encryption, but with way less of a performance hit. It's a total win-win.
But of course, in the world of IT, it's never that simple, is it? While these updates patch those critical security holes, they've also, unfortunately, introduced a few pretty significant problems of their own.
And this first major headache is a doozy, especially if you're a developer or a power user. We're talking about a conflict between the Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL, and certain VPNs.
So, if your whole workflow relies on using WSL while you're connected to a corporate VPN, this update could bring your productivity to a grinding halt. After installing this patch on Windows 11, developers are reporting that all network connectivity from inside their Linux environment just dies. You can't install packages, you can't connect to remote servers. It basically breaks a critical tool for a huge number of tech pros.
All right, the next problem takes us into the enterprise world. And this one specifically hits folks running older systems. It involves something called Microsoft Message Queuing, or MSQ, on Windows 10 machines.
Now, this is a huge deal for any application that relies on MSMQ to communicate. After installing the patch, the service just starts throwing these insufficient resources errors, even on machines that have tons of memory and storage. This can cause critical back-end processes to just fall over, especially in high availability setups. For some businesses, this isn't an annoyance, it's a complete showstopper.
So alongside those really high-impact bugs, there are also a couple of, let's call them lower severity, but very, very noticeable visual glitches that are popping up and just confusing everybody.
On the one hand, you've got this weird flashing in File Explorer. It's just a brief white flash. Annoying? For sure, but it doesn't break anything. A little more confusing is the issue on the right. The password field on the login screen can literally just disappear. Now, the good news is it's just a visual bug. You can still type your password and log in just fine, but it's definitely the kind of thing that causes a flood of help desk tickets.
So we've got this mess, right? You have to install these critical patches, but those same patches might break your critical systems. So what on earth are you supposed to do? Well, that brings us to the deployment playbook, a strategy to get through this safely.
And really, the whole game plan comes down to one simple idea. Prioritize security, but deploy with caution.
You absolutely cannot ignore these 0 days, but you also can't just blindly push an update that could cause a major outage. You need a balanced, careful approach.
Here's your 4-step plan. Step 1. Patch your most vulnerable systems immediately. Think internet-facing servers. Step 2. Before you deploy to everyone, roll out the updates to a small pilot group that represents different teams in your company. 3. Use that pilot group to actively test the things we know are at risk. Check WSL. Test your MSQ apps. And finally, and this is a big one, always double-check that your BitLocker recovery keys are backed up and you know where they are. You do not want to discover they're missing after something goes wrong.
So let's drill down a bit. If you have developers using WSL and VPNs, they need to be your canary in the coal mine. Test it with them first. If it breaks, you might actually need to delay the update for that group until Microsoft has a fix. For your Windows 10 servers running MSMQ, go ahead and deploy the patch, but have a rollback plan ready to go the second you see those insufficient resources errors. And like we said, those BitLocker recovery keys are your safety net. Make sure you know where it is.
So at the end of the day, it really all comes down to this balancing act. These December updates are a perfect example of what patching looks like now. It's not just a simple security task anymore. It's a really complex risk management exercise.
And that leaves us with a much bigger question to think about, doesn't it? This whole cycle of urgent fixes causing new, urgent problems, it feels like it's getting more and more common. It really makes you wonder if the decades-old model of a single massive patch dump every month is still the right way to do things, or if the industry needs to find a better way forward.